On the way home from a huge Easter family party in Charleston when I was 16, I got into a horrific accident on I-26. The doctor said I needed emergency surgery within the hour or I wouldn't make it. My mom and my little sister were at an upscale spa that afternoon. When the hospital put her on speaker, my mom's exact words were, "If she doesn't pull through, just let me know later. We're in the middle of a treatment and I'm not signing anything right now." My name is Serenity Carver and I'm 21 now. 18 days later, when I finally opened my eyes, the chart at the foot of my bed had been quietly updated. It no longer listed my mother as my legal guardian. Someone else's name was there instead. And that new guardian was, if you've ever watched the people who are supposed to love you the most turn their backs the second you needed them, drop the words, "I've seen it in the comments so I know I'm not the only one." Hit that subscribe button if you want to know exactly who stepped up when my own mother walked away, because the story only gets crazier from here. Let me take you back to how everything started. I grew up in a big white house on James Island just outside Charleston. My dad died of leukemia when I was 6. One week he was teaching me how to ride a bike in the driveway, the next he was gone. After the funeral, the only person who still showed up every single weekend was my mom's father, Clarence Brooks. Everyone in the county knew him as the former police chief who never really retired. He just traded the badge for a fishing rod and a porch swing. He'd pull up in his old Ford pickup, bring me shrimp and grits from his favorite spot on Shem Creek, and let me sit in the front seat while he told stories about chasing bootleggers down back roads. To me, he wasn't Grandpa Clarence. He was simply Grandpa, the one adult who never can led. My mom, Harmony Carver, grieved for about a year. Then, she met Colin Reed at some charity gala downtown. Colin owned half the new construction on Kiwa Island, and drove a black Range Rover that always smelled like new leather. 2 years later, they got married in a beachfront ceremony I barely remember. 9 months after that, Haven arrived, blonde, loud, and instantly the center of the universe. Suddenly, the house had a nursery, a nanny, and a whole new set of rules. My bedroom got moved to the back corner over the garage so Haven could have the bigger room with a balcony. My soccer trophies disappeared into boxes. My mom started introducing me as my older daughter instead of by name, like I was an extra in someone else's family photo. By the time I turned 14, I was basically invisible. Colin paid for everything, but he never looked at me unless I was in his way. Haven got new clothes every season. I got handed down uniforms from the private school I didn't even attend. The only place I still felt wanted was Grandpa's little brick house in West Ashley, 20 minutes across the Ravenel Bridge. He kept my old bike in his garage, kept the freezer stocked with popsicles, and never once asked why I spent every free weekend there. Easter weekend when I was 16 was supposed to be different. Grandpa threw his annual cookout. 3 long tables under the live oaks, low country boil, DLL'd eggs, sweet tea in mason jars. Cousins I hadn't seen in years flew in. There was music, kids running everywhere, the smell of charcoal in the air. I wore the pale yellow sundress Grandpa bought me the month before because he said it matched my eyes. For a few hours it almost felt like the old days, like maybe I still belonged somewhere. Then I overheard my mom on the phone by the dessert table. She was laughing, telling someone she and Haven had booked a mother otter spa day the next morning. Facials, massages, the whole package. And after that, they were flying to the Bahamas for spring break. Just the 3 of them, her, Colin, and Haven. My name came up. I stood there holding a plate of banana pudding, feeling it go cold in my hands. I told Grandpa I had a headache and needed to head home early. He tried to argue, but I could tell something was wrong. But I just wanted out. He handed me the keys to the 1998 Jeep Wrangler he'd helped me buy with my summer lifeguard money. "Drive careful, baby girl. Text me when you get there." Promised I would. It was already getting dark when I hit I-26 westbound. A spring rolled in fast, the way they do in the low country sky. Turned green, rain coming down in sheets. Windshield wipers going full speed and still losing the battle. Traffic slowed to a crawl. I had the radio up loud to keep myself awake. Some old country song Grandpa loved. Headlights blurred into streaks of white and red. I never saw the tractor trailer until it was too late. The driver hydroplaned, jackknifed across 3 lanes and slammed into the driver's side of my Jeep, doing at least 60. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world flipped twice, roof caving in before it finally slid to a stop upside down against the median. I remember the seat belt cutting into my shoulder, the taste of blood, the sudden silence after the crash, and then nothing at all. Somewhere far away, sirens started screaming toward me. The emergency room at MUSC was pure chaos. Doctors shouted codes. Monitors screamed. Someone kept yelling for more O negative. They wheeled me straight into Trauma Bay 1. My clothes were cut off in seconds. Needles went into both arms, tubes down my throat. A surgeon in blood-spattered scrubs leaned over me and said, "My pelvis was shattered, spleen ruptured, bleeding inside my skull, and I had less than an hour before things went irreversible. They needed parental consent to take me to the O right now." A nurse with kind eyes held my phone, scrolled to Mom, and hit FaceTime. The call connected on the 3rd ring. I heard spa music and the low hum of massage chairs. My mother's face appeared, sheet mask still on, cucumber slices over her eyes. Haven was sprawled on the table next to her, earbuds in, scrolling TikTok. "Mrs. Reed, this is Nurse Alvarez at MUSC Trauma," the nurse said, angling the camera so Harmony could see my face covered in blood and the ventilator tube. "Your daughter has been in a severe accident. She has life-threatening injuries and requires immediate surgery. We need verbal consent now, or she may not survive the next hour." Harmony peeled one cucumber slice off and squinted at the screen. Haven pulled an earbud out and leaned over to look. The doctor stepped in. "Ma'am, we're looking at multiple fractures, internal bleeding, possible brain swelling. We have to open her up immediately." Harmony's side-eyed like someone had just asked her to move her car. "If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over," she said, voice flat. "We're in the middle of a treatment, and I'm not driving all the way downtown to sign papers." Haven let out a short, sharp laugh, covered her mouth, then snapped a screenshot of my battered face on the gurney. I watched her thumbs fly across the screen. Later I would learn the caption she sent her group chat was finally some peace. The nurse's hand trembled holding the phone. A doctor behind her muttered, "Jesus Christ." Someone else whispered, "Get that recorded." The nurse tried again. "Ma'am, this is a legal requirement for a minor." "I heard you," Harmony cut in. "Call my father, Clarence Brooks. He'll handle it. We paid for a full day here." She ended the call. The trauma team stared at the blank screen. One resident looked ready to throw the phone across the room. They scrolled to the next emergency contact, Grandpa. His old Ford pickup was already on the road when the hospital reached him. He'd been sitting on his porch cleaning shrimp for tomorrow's supper. The second he heard Serenity and Critical, he dropped everything and floored it across the Ashley River Bridge, still wearing rubber boots and an apron stained with fish blood. Rain hammered the windshield. Lightning lit up the sky. He made the 25-minute drive in 16. He burst through the ER doors, soaked to the bone, badge from 30 years ago, still clipped to his belt out of habit. The charge nurse took one look at the retired chief and waved him straight through. He signed every consent form they shoved in front of him without reading a single line, hand shaking so hard the pen scratched the paper. They let him into the bay long enough to see me, tubes everywhere, face swollen beyond recognition. He leaned close to my ear and whispered the same thing he used to say when I had nightmares as a little kid. "I've got you, baby girl. Grandpa's right here." Then they rushed me to surgery. He pulled a metal chair up to the glass wall outside the operating room and sat down. He didn't move for the next 9 hours. Not when the nurses offered coffee. Not when the waiting room emptied. Not when the storm outside knocked the power out for 12 minutes and the backup generators kicked on. When they finally wheeled me to ICU just before dawn. He followed the bed, still holding the same cold hand that had gone limp hours earlier. The next 18 days became the longest of Grandpa's life. He smelled like antiseptic and fear. Machines hissed and beeped in a rhythm that never let anyone forget how thin the line was. Grandpa claimed the vinyl recliner beside my bed and refused to leave. Nurses tried to send him home the first night. He just showed them the old badge still in his wallet and said, "I'm not going anywhere." After that, nobody argued. He slept in 30-minute bursts, head tipped back, mouth open, boots still on. When he woke, he talked to me non-stop, voice low, so the monitors wouldn't drown him out. He told me about the night I was born, how he held me first because my mom was too exhausted. He retold the story of the summer I was 8 and we caught a 5-foot shark off Folly Beach Pier, how I screamed until he let me reel it in myself. He read aloud from the worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. He kept in the truck doing all the voices. Some evenings he just hummed the old hymn his own mother sang when he was little, the one that always put me to sleep on his couch. Doctors came and went. One morning the neurologist said the swelling in my brain was down. Another afternoon, the orthopedic surgeon warned the pelvis might never heal straight. Grandpa listened, nodded, asked questions sharp enough to make residents sweat, then went right back to holding my hand like nothing had changed. On day 16, the numbers finally started moving the right way. My blood pressure stabilized. The ventilator settings dropped. A nurse caught Grandpa smiling for the first time in 2 weeks. That same afternoon, while he leaned close, whispering that the redfish were running and we'd go fishing the minute I woke up, a tall man in a navy suit appeared at the glass door. Mr. Donovan had worked cases with Grandpa 25 years ago. They still played poker once a month. Grandpa looked up, saw the folder in Donovan's hand, and gave one slow nod. No words needed. Donovan left the hospital, got in his silver Lexus, and drove straight to James Island. He knew the address by heart. Harmony and Haven were in the foyer, surrounded by designer luggage. 2 matching pink suitcases sat by the door, tags already attached for a 7-night Royal Caribbean cruise, leaving Charleston Harbor the next morning. Colin was upstairs on a work call. Haven was filming herself twirling in a new sundress for Instagram. Harmony was double-checking passports. The doorbell rang. Donovan introduced himself, handed over the thick envelope, and waited while Harmony ripped it open. Inside were 2 sets of papers. Emergency petition to strip parental rights for medical neglect of a minor, and a civil suit filed by the hospital for extraordinary life-saving expenses plus pain and suffering. Both named Harmony Reed, and because Haven was 14 and had actively participated in the refusal, her as well. Harmony's face went white under the spray tan. Haven stopped recording mid-spin. "You have 72 hours to respond," Donovan said, voice calm. "After that, the judge has already agreed to an emergency hearing." Harmony started yelling about lawyers and mistakes, and how dare anyone question her parenting. Haven burst into dramatic tears, claiming she didn't mean anything by the texts. Donovan simply turned and walked back to his car. Inside the house, Harmony slid down the wall, clutching the papers, mascara running black rivers down her cheeks. Haven kept screaming that this would ruin her spring break. Colin came downstairs, took one look at the documents and went pale. Back at the hospital, Grandpa never mentioned the visitor. He just kept holding my hand, humming that same old hymn, waiting for the day my eyes would open. 2 days later, I opened my eyes for the first time. Everything hurt. My mouth tasted like metal and plastic. Machines still beeped, but softer now. The first face I saw was Grandpa's unshaven eyes, red-rimmed, grinning, so wide I thought his cheeks would split. "Hey, baby girl," he whispered, voice cracking. "Welcome back," I tried to speak. Nothing came out except a rasp. He pressed the call button, then lifted the whiteboard at the foot of the bed so I could read it. In black marker, big bold letters, "Legal Guardian Clarence Brooks." I stared until the words blurred. Tears rolled sideways into my ears. He wiped them away with a thumb that still smelled faintly of shrimp and salt air. Over the next hours, between nurses checking vitals and doctors shining lights in my eyes, he told me everything. The FaceTime call, my mother's exact words. Haven's screenshot. The papers served while I lay unconscious. He didn't sugarcoat any of it. He never had. I cried again, harder this time. Not from pain, but from relief so deep it felt like drowning in reverse. 3 weeks later they let me go home. Not to James Island, but to Grandpa's little gray house on stilts in Folly Beach, 15 minutes south of the city. The salt air hit my lungs the second he carried me over the threshold. My new bedroom used to be his fishing tackle room. He'd painted the walls pale blue and hung the same wind chimes we'd made when I was 9. From the window, I could see the ocean rolling in steady and endless. Physical therapy started the following Monday. I learned to sit up, then stand, then shuffle behind a walker while Grandpa spotted me like I was 2 years old again. He cooked shrimp and grits every night because it was soft enough for my wired jaw. We watched the sunset from the porch, swing his arm around my shoulders, neither of us needing to fill the quiet. One afternoon, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The screen showed Mom. I stared at it for 10 rings. Grandpa watched from the doorway, saying nothing. I pressed decline, set the phone face down, and went back to the porch. That was the only time she ever tried. Across town, Colin filed for divorce the same week. His company had just landed a massive contract with the Port Authority. The last thing he needed was headlines about child abandonment tied to his name. He moved out of the James Island house before the ink dried, taking only his clothes and the golf clubs. Haven lost her mind on social media for about 3 days, then went radio silent when colleges started pulling scholarship offers. Grandpa never brought it up unless I asked. When I did, he answered straight. They made their choice, Rin. Now we make ours. Some nights the pain woke me screaming. He'd shuffle in wearing old police academy sweat, sit on the edge of the bed and hold my hand until the meds kicked in. Other nights I woke to the sound of him praying out loud in the living room, voice rough, asking God to give him enough years to see me whole again. By the time the stitches came out and the casts turned to braces, I could walk the length of the pier without stopping. Grandpa bought 2 rods and a bucket of shrimp. We sat at the end where the water turns deep green lines in the water, not catching much but not caring. The sun burned the last of the hospital smell off my skin. I looked out at the horizon one evening, wind whipping my hair across my face, and realized I wasn't waiting for anything anymore. No apology, no explanation, no second chance. I never wanted to give. The ocean just kept moving, same as always. A couple of months later, the preliminary hearing day arrived. The courthouse on Broad Street smelled like old wood and floor wax. I walked in on crutches, Grandpa on one side, Donovan on the other. My mother sat at the defendant's table in a navy suit, 2 sizes too big, now eyes puffy, no makeup. Haven slouched beside her in a private school blazer, staring at the floor. The judge was a woman with steel gray hair and 0 patience. She adjusted her glasses and told the bailiff to roll the recording. The FaceTime call played on the big screen. My broken body on the gurney. The spa music in the background. My mother's voice clear and cold. If she doesn't make it, just call me when it's over. Haven's laugh. The screenshot of my bloody face with her caption underneath. The courtroom went dead silent. A juror in the back actually gasped. Donovan laid the phone records on the bench next. Haven had forwarded the photo to 7 different group chats within 4 minutes. One message read, "One less person stealing my spring break." The judge's pen stopped moving. She looked at my mother for a long, hard moment. "Mrs. Red," she said, voice like ice. In 23 years on this bench, I have never heard a parent speak about their child this way. While that child was fighting for her life, temporary full custody is immediately transferred to Clarence Brooks effective today. We'll see you back here for the permanent hearing. She banged the gavel so hard the sound echoed off the marble. 3 days later, Harmony was fired from her job at the South Carolina State Credit Union. Background checks are mandatory for anyone handling federal funds. Medical neglect of a minor is an automatic disqualifier. Security escorted her out with a cardboard box. Haven's full-ride academic scholarship to the College of Charleston got revoked the same week. The admissions board cited conduct incompatible with the values of the institution. Suddenly, the private high school that once worshipped her started whispering behind her back. Within a month, the James Island house went into foreclosure. Colin's name was already off the deed. He had signed everything over to protect his assets. Mother and daughter moved into a 2-bedroom apartment off Savannah Highway, the kind with peeling paint and a broken elevator. Haven lost her car. Harmony took a night job stocking shelves at a grocery store to cover rent. Meanwhile, I started real therapy. Twice a week, a van picked me up for outpatient physical rehab at MUSC. I learned how to climb stairs again, how to balance on a Bosu ball, how to trust my own legs. Grandpa drove me every single time, waited in the lobby reading the same 3 fishing magazines until I came out sweating and shaking. On Thursdays, I saw a trauma counselor named Dr. Rivera. We sat in a small office that smelled like lavender and talked about nightmares, about rage, about the day I realized I never wanted to hear my mother's voice again. Grandpa waited in the truck windows down Country Station low, never once complaining about the heat. Some afternoons when the pain in my hips got too loud, I'd sit on the back deck and throw pieces of bread to the GS. Grandpa would join me with 2 sweet teas, and we'd watch the tide go out. He never tried to fix my anger. He just let me feel it. By the end of summer I could ditch the crutches for a cane, then the cane for nothing at all. I still walked with a slight limp, but the doctor said most of it would fade by my 18th birthday. One evening I made it all the way to the end of Folly Pier and back without stopping. Grandpa met me halfway carrying a blanket and a flashlight, even though the sun hadn't set yet. We sat on the sand, shoes off, letting the waves lick our toes. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Thank you for staying," I said. He kissed the top of my head. "Nowhere else I'd rather be, baby girl." 7 months after the crash, the final trial day came. I walked into the courtroom without crutches, cane, or limp. The scar on my forehead was still pink, but my head was high. Grandpa sat right behind me in his Sunday suit, the one he wore to my dad's funeral. Harmony looked smaller than I remembered, hair pulled back tight, clutching a tissue she never used. Haven stared straight ahead, arms crossed so hard her knuckles went white. Donovan called me to the stand first. I swore and sat down and looked the judge in the eye. "Tell the court how it felt," he said, "knowing your mother refused to come while you were dying." Took a breath. The room waited. It felt like the last piece of me that still believed I mattered just died on that table, I said. My voice didn't shake. I learned in one sentence that I was disposable. And the person who said it was the same woman who used to read me bedtime stories. I told them about waking up to Grandpa's name on the Guardian line. About the single missed call I never returned. About every night I fell asleep listening to the ocean instead of wondering why I wasn't enough. Harmony's lawyer tried to paint her as stressed, overwhelmed, a victim of circumstance. He brought up her job loss, the foreclosure, the divorce. I didn't look at her once. When he finished, the judge asked if I had anything else to say. "Yes, Your Honor," I answered. "I don't want her money. I don't want her apologies. I just want this to be over. I already have a family." The judge didn't need long. She returned 20 minutes later. Permanent termination of parental rights for Harmony Reed effective immediately. Civil judgment in favor of the plaintiff and the hospital. $480,000. The James Island property will be sold at auction to satisfy the lien. Mr. Clarence Brooks is granted full legal adoption. This case is closed. The gavel cracked like a starting gun. Outside in the hallway, reporters shouted questions. I ignored them all, took Grandpa's arm and walked into the October sunshine. 3 weeks later, the bank padlocked the big White House. A moving truck came for what little Harmony and Haven decided to keep. They loaded boxes into an old sedan and drove north on I-26, headed somewhere cheaper, somewhere nobody knew their names. I never asked where. That same month, the adoption papers arrived in the mail. I signed Serenity Brooks for the first time and cried harder than the day I woke up from the coma. Grandpa framed the certificate above the fireplace right next to my dad's old service photo. I started my senior year at an alternative school 10 minutes from Folly Beach. Small classes, teachers who actually cared, no one who knew the story unless I told them. I made the honor roll every quarter and got accepted early decision to the College of Charleston, close enough to come home every night if I wanted. Graduation day came warm and windy. I wore the pale blue cap and gown, same color as the bedroom walls Grandpa painted for me. When they called my name, the entire senior class stood up and cheered because by then everyone knew who had carried me through. Grandpa waited at the bottom of the steps in his dress uniform metals, polished eyes shining. I ran to him, threw my arms around his neck, and let him lift me off the ground like I still weighed nothing. 5 years have passed since that Easter Sunday. I'm 21 now, diploma in psychology on the wall, working as a family trauma counselor at a non-profit just over the bridge in Mount Pleasant. Every day I sit across from teenagers who believe no one will ever choose them, and I get to tell them they're wrong because someone chose me when the people who were supposed to love me most walked away without looking back. Grandpa turned 77 last month. He still owns the yard himself. Still catches more fish than any charter boat captain on the island, still makes the best shrimp and grits in the state. The house on stilts is exactly the same: wind chimes, singing porch swing, creaking coffee pot, always half full. My old room is still pale blue. His tackle room is still a bedroom because neither of us ever changed it back. We eat dinner on the deck most nights watching dolphins chase mullet in the surf. He calls me baby girl exactly once a day, usually when he hands me a sweet tea. I still call him Grandpa. Nothing else feels right. Harmony and Haven left South Carolina for good 3 years ago. Last I heard, they were somewhere in Georgia renting a trailer under different last names. I never searched for them. They never searched for me. The silence is clean. It's final. It's peace. Some people ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger takes energy I decided to spend on living instead. Some ask if I forgive. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. It's theirs to earn, and they never tried. I'm simply done. What I do carry is gratitude so deep it still catches me off guard. Gratitude for the man who slept in a vinyl chair for 18 nights. For the retired chief who never missed a single therapy appointment. For the grandfather who turned his house into a home and his heart into a harbor. Family isn't the people who share your blood. Family is the person who stays when your blood runs cold on an operating table. Family is the one who signs the papers, holds your hand, and never once makes you feel like a burden. If you're watching this and you're scared, you don't have that person, look harder. They're out there. Sometimes they're the grandparent you didn't expect to need. Sometimes they're the friend, the teacher, the neighbor who refuses to leave. And when you find them, hold on. Because real family isn't born. It's chosen every single day. Especially on the days when choosing you costs them everything. That's the only truth I know for sure. And that's my story.